We left off, if I remember correctly, somewhere around, in this edition, pages 9, 44, 45. Or did we get past that? Right when, I think, Gollum attacks Frodo and Sam, Frodo gets away. Sam tells him to go on so that he can deal with Gollum. Did we discuss that passage? Yes? Okay. So, he doesn't kill Gollum. He wants to, but he doesn't because Sam now pities Gollum. He pities Gollum for what reason? Because he held the ring too. He bore the ring, even for a few hours, okay? And he understands how Gollum's mind has been shriveled and all that kind of stuff. That's telling us Sam has experienced a little bit of that, right? Bottom of 944. Deep in his heart there was something that restrained him. He could not strike this thing lying in the dust, forlorn, ruinous, utterly wretched. He himself, though only for a little while, had borne the ring, and now he dimly guessed the agony of Gollum's shriveled mind and body, enslaved to that ring, unable to find peace or relief ever in life again. And I think I did it in here. I know I did it in my first class. That phrase, in life, I find very intriguing because of my understanding of Tolkien, what he says about in his letters about his Catholicism and such, I think that's a little bit of his Catholic subconscious coming out. And he might be suggesting Gollum can find relief outside life, after life, okay? Don't know if that's true. I'm not suggesting that it's true. I'm just kind of wondering, especially with what Frodo's going to say in a moment. So, Sam runs up to the entrance to the Cracks of Doom, and he sees Frodo. When Sam calls his name, we're told, Frodo stirs. It's like Frodo's frozen there for a moment. Sam calls Master, and then Frodo stirs, and he speaks with a clear, loud voice. It's the first time he's spoken with a clear, loud voice in weeks. Okay? And Frodo says, I have come, but I do not choose now to do what I came to do. I will not do this deed. The ring is mine. Why does he say that? Why does he claim the ring?
The ring is starting to take influence over him.
Keep going. Yes, you're on the right track. Take that farther, though. What did he say earlier, about a week earlier, when Frodo says, it's become unbearable, it's too hard to carry it. Sam says, I can carry it for you for a little while. And Frodo calls him a thief, then he says, no, sorry, Sam. He says, I couldn't let you have it. He says, I could not give it up even if I wanted to. At that point. Why? Because a ring of power, Frodo, will, Gandalf says in the Shadow of the Past, will ultimately possess whoever of mortal race attempts to possess it. Frodo is now wholly, quote-unquote, possessed by the ring. Not possessed in a Catholic spiritual sense. It's not like, the devil's got hold of him. It's the ring has total control, right? I think I mentioned this the other day. When Gollum attacks Frodo and Frodo repels him, and Sam sees this vision of Gollum, an old, starved, pitiable thing, looking up to a figure robed in white, and that figure is now untouchable by pity, and that figure is holding a wheel of fire at its breast. Out of the wheel of fire comes the voice saying, Begone and trouble me no more. If you touch me ever again, you shall be cast yourself into the fire of doom. I think I asked, who's speaking there? Is that Frodo speaking? Is that the ring speaking? Or are they one and the same? I don't think they're one and the same, by the way. I think it is, I could be wrong. I think it is the ring speaking. And the ring is saying, if you, Gollum, ever touch me again, you will be, notice the language, cast into. How does Gollum die? He falls into. Cast means picked up and thrown. From our perspective, from what we see, it looks like he merely falls. So is there something else going on? Is this something related to back in the shadow of the past? Frodo, you were meant to have the ring. Is this something where there's some other power at work that Gandalf has alluded to and such? Okay? So, Frodo puts on the ring. Frodo first claims the ring. The ring is mine. And what immediately happens way up in the north at Barad-dûr, the Tower of Sauron?
It starts trembling
Yeah, why?
because Sauron.
Because Sauron goes, oh my, string of expletives, you know. How could I be so stupid? And he turns and he looks directly to that opening in the mountain, because we're told that opening looks directly towards Barad-dûr. He immediately knows what Gandalf has done, essentially. He doesn't know that, it's not Gandalf, obviously, but he knows what they've achieved. Have they achieved it yet? No. The ring is still out in the open, so to speak. But there's Gollum knocking Sam down. It's almost like, this is not literally happening, but it's almost like when Sauron turns and looks, he gets that telescopic vision. You know, telescope is what? Something that brings what is far away up near. Television. It's what the word palantir, by the way, literally means. Far seeing. Okay? It's like he's looking into that doorway from those hundreds of miles away, and he sees Frodo, and he sees Gollum attack, and then he sees Frodo again, holding up 4 fingers, and Gollum dancing, precious, precious, my precious, and falls. Because what can Sauron do at that point? Nothing. He sends the other riders. They're now on their black dragon-like steeds, okay? The other black riders who are now on essentially like dragons. He sends them north, but they can't cover the time fast enough. All right? Sam gets up. He's dazed, blood streaming from his head, dripping in his eyes. He sees Gollum on the edge of the abyss, fighting like a mad thing with something unseen. Okay? And then suddenly he sees Frodo falling to his knees at the chasm's edge. But Gollum, dancing like a mad thing, held aloft the ring, a finger still through, thrust within its circle. Precious, 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 my precious, oh my precious. Notice, if you watch the film, it's not like in the film. Because in the film, the ring falls into the crevice and lands on a little ledge, so that Frodo tries to get it. It's straight out of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, you know, where Indiana's trying to get the Holy Grail, okay? Ring and Gollum fall. There's a roar. Fires leap up. 947 at the bottom. Well, this is the end, Sam Gamgee, says Frodo. Pale, worn, but himself again. What does that mean, but himself again? No longer controlled by the ring, no longer bearing the burden of the ring. And in his eyes there is peace now, neither strain of will, nor madness, nor fear. The burden was taken away. Notice that terminology. The burden was not what? What's the agency in that short sentence? His burden was taken away. In grammar, that's called passive voice. Frodo is not an agent there. Frodo is receiving the action. The burden that he carried has now been removed from him. Why? Because he couldn't do it himself. All right? There was the dear master of the sweet days in the Shire. I pointed out to my first class this morning something that had literally never entered my mind. I've been reading Lord of the Rings since 1977. I've been teaching this course since, or a variation of this course, or the Lord of the Rings at least, since early 2000s. 2003, something like that. I think this is an element of Tolkien's Catholicism. And what I mean by that is, in Catholic theology, broadly construed, okay, this is the most superficial portrayal of it. You're saved by works. You're saved by the work of Christ, etc., but also by your own works, your own good works, okay? You have to do good deeds. And more so in the Middle Ages, the theology emphasized, than today, okay? Part of that is because none of us, according to this theology, is able to do enough good on our own in order to merit salvation, okay? In the 5th or 6th century, 5th to 6th century Britain, AD, there is a priest named Pelagius, a British monk, essentially. He taught a doctrine that said you can do it on your own. If you're a good enough person, if you have a strong enough will to oppose evil and such, you can merit salvation on your own. You don't need Jesus, in other words. That was, when that word kind of spread, it was immediately condemned as a heresy, as a pretty bad heresy, because if you don't need Jesus, then he didn't need to die. And there you go with the crucifixion, resurrection, all that's superfluous, all right? I think what Tolkien is showing here is this necessity for someone else to be involved, someone else to do something, someone else to provide the removal of the burden, okay? Is Gollum Jesus? Obviously not. Is Gollum a savior type, a deliverer type? He might be. If you go back to the Old Testament and look at the types, those characters who kind of prefigured or pointed to Jesus, so to speak, every one of them is, in one sense or another, bad or fallen. David, sleeps with Bathsheba, kills her husband so he can later marry her. Samson, not a good story, ultimately. All throughout, Moses kills an Egyptian. They're all murderers, by the way. There's all these examples, but they point to the other one in traditional Christian theology. Thomas Aquinas, major medieval Catholic theologian, right? Suggested, I think he actually said this, if a deed that you do is good, if you do an action that is objectively good, it doesn't matter what the motive was. That is, you might have intended evil, but if what is done is objectively good, that's the important thing. That gets attributed to you, okay? What is the deed Gollum does?
He takes the ring,
And
throws it in the fire.
he doesn't throw it in.
He takes it into the fire.
He's destroyed too. Even though he doesn't intend this, there is an element of self-sacrifice here. Again, the deed is what? The destruction of the ring. No matter which way you count it, that's objectively good. A great evil has now left the world. Okay? Why am I emphasizing this? Look at what Frodo says. Frodo says, Do you remember Gandalf's words? Even Gollum may have something yet to do. But for him, Sam, I could not have destroyed the ring. What does he mean by but for? Without Gollum, I could not have destroyed the ring. Did Frodo destroy the ring? No. That's what he's saying. In the grand scheme of things, in terms of, okay, Frodo, here's your task. Take the ring to Mount Doom, throw it in, destroy it. Failure or success? On Frodo's part. Total failure. He gets to Mount Doom. Yep. The all important thing is throwing the ring in. He fails on that. Why? He couldn't do anything other than that. The ring possessed him. He became, because of that, wholly evil. Once the ring is destroyed, he's cleansed from the evil. That's got to be his Catholic philosophy coming out, whether he is aware of it or not, in my opinion. Okay? So, go on from there. That's why he says, but for him, Sam, I could not have destroyed the ring. The quest would have been in vain, even at the bitter end. So, let us forgive him. That implies what? Within the Catholic philosophical tradition, wipe the slate clean. That's it. Gollum's slate wiped clean. Why? He did this one good deed as his final act. It means all the bad stuff he did before, whoosh, gone. Okay? That is deeply philosophical, deeply religious and such. Okay? So, we get chapter 4, the Field of Kamala, which we're going to go through quickly. So what does Frodo think is going to happen at that point? Look at the first sentence. All about the hills, the host of Mordor raged. Okay? Mordor is in a tumult at this point. Okay? Gandalf says, stand, men of the West. Why? Because Gandalf knows they're at the edge of the precipice. Has the ring been destroyed at that moment? Not quite. Gandalf lifts up his arms, he says, stand, and even as he spoke, the earth rocked beneath their feet, rising swiftly up, far above the towers of the Black Gate, high above the mountains. A vast soaring darkness rises into the sky. Now the men of the West are probably thinking what at that point? Now we've done it. Now we've angered Sauron really, and he's actually coming up and... But Gandalf knows it's just the opposite. Okay? The realm of Sauron is ended, the ring bearer has fulfilled his quest, etc. Meanwhile, back at Mount Doom, Frodo says, I'm glad that you're here with me, here at the end of all things. He has said at the end of all things now 3 times. What's going on in Frodo's mind?
We're dead.
Yeah, we're goners. The quest is achieved, but we're going to die. What did Sam tell himself when he realized it was 50 miles to get to Mount Doom? We don't have food and provisions. I'll get them there. We'll destroy it, but we're going to die. Never going to get to go back home. Now he's hearing that from Frodo. I'm with you, Master. You're with me, and the journey's finished, but, I don't want to give up yet. It's not like that. It's not like me somehow, if you understand, Sam. Maybe not, Frodo. Maybe not, Sam, but it's like things are in the world. In other words, you do your best, and then you die. How's that for a positive outlook on life, Put yourself in Frodo's shoes. Literally. He doesn't have any. What's happened to him on this journey? Less than 3 weeks from leaving his comfortable home in the Shire, he gets stabbed in the shoulder by a Morgul blade. Nearly kills him. Okay? Several months later, he gets bitten on the neck by a big, you know what, spider. Nearly kills him. Now he gets his finger bit off. 3 wounds. Doesn't nearly kill him, but the torment of bearing the ring nearly does. Okay? He's got reason to be kind of bleak in his outlook on life. So he says, we only have a little time to wait now. We are lost in ruin and downfall. There is no escape. Literally speaking, where are they when he says this? They're in the volcano. The ring has just been destroyed. They're sitting, like, here's the crevasse where the lava is, and they're sitting, like, right here. And he's just sitting there. We're about to die. What does Sam suggest? We could move a few feet away from the open volcano lava and everything, because we're told when the ring is destroyed, the lava spouts, the fire from the lava spouts and hits the roof. It's like, back off a little bit, okay? Let's go down the path. Very well, Sam. In other words, okay, it's just dying a few minutes later, but okay, we'll do that. If you wish to go, I'll come. So they go down. And now the volcano literally starts to erupt. Lava flowing down around them. And we're told they could go no further. The last strength of mind, the body was ebbing. And they stand, and Sam holds Frodo's hand, caressing it. Talks about Frodo the nine-fingered. And right here, the Wind Lord swoops down and rescues them. Okay? Skip a bunch now. Field of Cormoran. They see Gandalf. They see Merry and Pippin. They see Aragorn, etc. Chapter 5, Steward and the King. Okay? We pick up with Éowyn and Faramir in the houses of Healing, the Minas Tirith General Hospital, so to speak. Okay? Faramir's outside walking in the garden. Sunlight's warming him up, and the warden, the hospital administrator, comes out, so to speak, and says, Lady Éowyn would like to speak with you. She rode with the king, he says, and was sorely hurt. She dwells in my keeping, but she's not content. That is, she's not happy. She wishes to speak to the steward of the city, which is what Faramir now is since his father's dead. Éowyn, he misspoke. Do not misunderstand him. It's not lack of care that grieves me. In other words, he's been great healer, you know. No houses could be fairer for those who desire to be healed. But I cannot lie in sloth, idle, caged. I look for death in battle. She used that term caged when she talked to Aragorn before he went off to the paths of the dead. She thinks staying behind, taking care of the infirm, the weak, the elderly, the children, etc., is like being caged. She's using that cage because she's using it as a metaphor. It's like being married, locked up in a cage, not being allowed to be what I am meant to be, etc. And she explains that Aragorn, she is a shield maiden. She wants to ride into battle. So she says here, I looked for death in battle. What does looked for mean?
You're like seeking it.
Yes. She's actively seeking it out. Okay? But I have not died. And battle still goes on. What does she mean?
The fighting in Mordor.
Let me go to Mordor. I want to die in battle. I don't want healing. Okay? Sounds kind of like Denethor. But Denethor is willing to do what she's not willing to do. Well, in this case, light him up. Faramir signals to the warden, go away. And he asks, what do you want me to do? I'm a prisoner too. That is, I'm steward, but I'm under his command. All right? And he looks at her, and being a man whom pity deeply stirred, it seemed to him her loveliness amid her grief would pierce his heart. This is what Tolkien means when he talks about in the fairy story essay as beauty that is perilous, beauty that can kill. She looked at him, saw the grave tenderness in his eyes, and knew, for she was bred among men of war, that here was one whom no rider of the mark would outmatch in battle. She looks at him and goes, oh, he should be out fighting, which is where he was, right? Remember what he told Denethor when he leaves Minas Tirith to go fight in the Pelennor fields? He says, I'll come back, but if I do, think better of me. Anybody remember Denethor's response?
Depends on how you come.
Depends on the manner of your return. What does he mean by that, Denethor?
Whether you're alive or dead.
Spartan women supposedly told their husbands when they went off to battle, come back. Anybody know?
With your shield or lying on it.
With your shield or on it. With your shield means you're still alive. On it means you're dead. Don't come back without your shield, because that's a coward. If you come back without your shield, it means you've been disarmed. Okay? He came back honorably. He was wounded in battle, So, he says again, what do you want? If I can do it, I'll give you what you want. Bid him let me go. Command this warden, tell him to let me go. And her heart falters for a moment. That is, when she says these words, bid him let me go, something inside stirs and she kind of quails. She almost unstates those words. Okay? And he goes, I can't. He's ordering me around. Okay? I should not cross his will. I don't desire healing, she tells him. I wish to ride to war like my brother Eomer. Or, better, like Theoden. Why? Because he died in battle. Eomer's still alive. Eomer's out there in the west. They're out there towards the east. He's fighting orcs and trolls and etc. For he died and has both honor and peace. She thinks if you die in battle, it's automatically honorable. Okay? Read Wilfred Owen's. We'll never finish this damn novel because I keep coming up with other stuff. Dulce et decorum est. Wilfred Owen was a World War I soldier. He was also a poet. He died in the war. Dulce et decorum est is part of a Latin phrase by Horace, the Roman poet. It is beautiful and meet. Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. To die for one's homeland. The description in the poem is of a guy on the front who doesn't get his gas mask on in time when the mustard gas shells blow up.
Didn't that almost happen to Hitler?
No, Hitler was almost shot.
Yeah, Hitler was shot. It is one of the most gut-wrenching things to read because it's an actual physical description of what happens when you see someone who inhales mustard gas. Mustard gas dissolves you from the inside. So froth starts coming out of the mouth. Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, don't tell little kids the lie, dulce et decorum est, that it is glorious and proper to die for your homeland. He's not saying war is bad. He's not saying it is not good to fight for your country. He's saying there's no glory in it. All right? So, Faramir says, it's too late. They're already out there fighting. But death and battle may come to us all yet, willing or unwilling. That is exactly what Aragorn said to her. Aragorn says, we may all die in battle. Guess what? you'll be among the last ones living. Because once they're done with us, they're going to come for the rest of you. You will be better prepared to face it in your own manner if you do as the healer commanded. That is, if you get strong and healthy again, you'll be better prepared. She doesn't answer, but as he looked at her, it seemed to him that something in her softened, as though a bitter frost were yielding at the first faint presage of spring, and a teardrop forms. Okay? So, they keep talking, and he says, it would ease my care. What does he mean by care? Sorrows, burdens, darkness of mind. If you could, walk with me at times. She said, how? How does that ease your care? I don't desire the speech of living men. I don't want to talk. You want my plain answer? She says, I do. You are beautiful in the valleys of our hills. There are flowers fair and bright, blah, 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 blah. He says, but nothing is as beautiful as you are. The flowers don't even compare. Okay? He says, and it may be we've only got a few days yet to live. Tolkien is telling us what about Middle Earth at this point? There's a group of scientists. They monitor what's called the atomic clock. I don't mean the atomic clock that keeps atomic time. It's the doomsday clock. When Trump got reelected, they immediately moved it from 10 or 13 minutes to midnight to 2 minutes. Happens every time a quote-unquote conservative or Republican gets elected, just because they're warmongers, etc. Okay? Middle Earth is 10 seconds to midnight. Because if Sauron gets the ring, it's it. So, he says, but being with you, and maybe only a few days are left ere darkness falls upon our world, and when it comes, I hope to face it steadily. It would ease my heart if while the sun yet shines, I could see you still. That is, it'll help me heal if we only have a few days to fight a battle. Okay? You and I have both passed under the wings of the shadow, and the same hand drew us back. Under the wings of the shadow? What does he mean? The valley of the shadow of death. That's what he means. We've both been almost there. She goes, no, it still lies on me. What has she said? Twice now. I want to die. She wants to die in battle. Why? Because for a warrior not to die in battle, that was ignoble, unnoble. A warrior wants to die in battle, sword in hand, or axe in hand, if you're Gimli, Shadow lies on me still. Look not to me for healing. She goes, stop it. She's not interested in romance. She knows what he's talking about. I'm a shield maiden. My hand is ungentle. But I will walk out here with you. Why? It's good to be in the sun. Okay? So, Mary sent to Faramir. A bunch of stuff goes on. Skipping a bunch. Days go on. Things look to get worse. And we're told, 964. The battle's been won. Word has reached Gondor. The West is victorious. Sauron is overthrown. And Faramir asks her, why are you still here? Your brother sent for you. Go off to the fields of Cormallin. Why haven't you gone? You don't know? He goes, well, there could be two reasons. I don't know which one it is. She goes, don't kill the riddles. What do you think are the reasons? He says, one, your brother calls you, but not Aragorn. Brotherly love is different than erotic love. You wanted the latter, but you got the former. Okay? Or you don't want to leave me. Do you not love me, or will you not? Middle of 964. I wished to be loved by another, but I desire no man's pity. What the hell is she talking about? What pity? You know I loved Aragorn. You know Aragorn doesn't love me. Therefore, she's using a false syllogism. Therefore, she's implying you're showing pity on me.
It's her pride.
Because of her pride. Okay? What does she want to be? They're going to talk about it. A queen. Or what did she want to be? Not just any old queen. What kind of king is Aragorn? He's the king. King of Gondor is the greatest king in Middle Earth. All right? She loved him. She wants to be the queen, so to speak. So, he said, I know you desire to have the love of the Lord Aragorn. Okay? He is high and puissant. It's one of the only times Tolkien uses a entirely French word. Because what does puissant mean? Powerful. Okay? And you wished to have renown and glory and to be lifted far above the mean things that crawl on the earth. Ooh, look at Elwyn thinking she's all that, right? But when he gave you only understanding and pity, then you desire to have nothing. Because Aragorn didn't love you, you want death. Look at me. She's looking off in the distance while he's talking to her. And she looks at him, and he says, do not scorn pity that is the gift of a gentle heart. But I don't offer you my pity. Why? You are a lady high and valiant. You've won renown. It won't be forgotten. And you are a lady beautiful, beyond even the words of the elven tongue to tell. He's just said, she is more beautiful than the elven tongue could come up with a word to express. That's similar to Gimli's telling Éomer that Galadriel is more beautiful than the reach of his thought. She's a looker, in other words, okay? And then he says, but now were you sorrowless, without fear or any lack, were you the blissful queen of Gondor, I would still love you. In other words, there's no pity involved. Do you not love me? The next sentence. Then the heart of Éowyn changed, or at least she understood it. One of my colleagues, some of you might have had him before, Professor Ryan Reed, now Dr. Ryan Reed, he got his PhD last year. He and I used to teach the Harry Potter course, this course. He and I taught the Harry Potter course in London sometimes. So my course, he'd come along and kind of co-teach it. He had started teaching this course. He started teaching this course a few years ago, and I said, yeah, sure. One time when we were talking over beer and cigars about the Lord of the Rings and stuff, he described this scene to me as Éowyn's conversion scene. Like a religious conversion. But it's not religious in the, from Satan to Jesus. It's a conversion in that she converts from one ideology to kind of another. Her original ideology is ultimately Anglo-Saxon. Tolkien says in the letters and such, the Rohirrim, the land of Rohan, is entirely based on Anglo-Saxon England. These warriors are Anglo-Saxon warriors. The great Old English epic Beowulf gives you all of this mentality, all right? She's an Anglo-Saxon warrior. You win glory, you die on the battlefield, etc. That's the ideology. She's converting from that to something else, okay? Look at what it says. Or at least she understood it. That is, it's not necessarily that her heart changed at that moment. It's not like she's the Grinch up on the top of Mount Crumpet, looking down, hearing the ha-hoot, whatever they are, singing on Christmas morning without all the gifts, and his heart suddenly grows 10 times as large. It's not that. She understood she has already changed inside. Okay? And suddenly her winter passed, and the sun shone on her. What does it mean by the winter passed? I'm going to use terminology that in the Me Too age we probably shouldn't use to describe women. She went from being frigid to now being alive. Her heart that was stone cold is now warm and beating. Not literally, it's all been beating because she's been breathing. Okay? She's now receptive in another way of putting it. And she says, I stand in mine or the tower of the sun, and behold, the shadow has departed. What shadow? That death, partly, that false ideology. What's the false ideology? Everything she says to Aragorn and what she has already talked to him about. Wanting to die on the battlefield, wanting to be a shield maiden. Both of those for what ultimate goal? Glory, pride, renown. I will be a shield maiden no longer. She's going to throw away her weapons, nor vie with the great riders, nor take joy only in the songs of slaying. What kind of songs? Anglo-Saxon songs valorizing warriors. The Old English epic poem Beowulf, as an example. Here's another example from Old English. Alcuin of York was a monk, scholar, priest. He taught Charlemagne's children in court in Aachen, late 790s, early 800s. Alcuin of York found out that one of the monasteries of England, when the normal custom in a monastery is when everybody shows up in the refectory, the cafeteria, to eat, the standard practice was you all would eat, and I would be the one chosen for the day to do the reading at meal times. I would stand up and I would read Lives of the Saints, sermons and homilies, New Testament epistles, the Gospels, things like that. So that while you're eating, you're taking in all this good moral instruction. Right? He hears word that at one of the monasteries, they're singing songs about the Anglo-Saxon/Germanic god ENGL. In other words, pagan songs celebrating ENGL. And he has this phrase in Latin, quid Christo cum Hineldes? What does Christ have to do with ENGL? These are monks. They should only be thinking about Christ, not some pagan god and his heroic exploits and such. I think Tolkien's a Beowulf scholar. He's the preeminent Beowulf scholar of his day. He's the preeminent Anglo-Saxon scholar of his day. He knew all this. I think he's got this in his mind when he writes this. Why? I'm not going to take joy in these kinds of songs anymore. I'm not saying that she's secretly going, I'm going to sing songs about Jesus, my Savior. Not that at all. Okay? I will be a healer and love all things that grow and are not barren. She's going to be healer rather than what? The soldier. What is a soldier's duty? What is the purpose for a soldier? Boil it down. Kill. Your purpose is to kill the enemy. What is the purpose of a healer? To stop the killing. Healers come after warriors. They don't come before. Even though Faramir said earlier, let's get well so that, if we do have to die, we can at least be strong enough to fight them off for a little bit. She's going to be a healer. She has totally overthrown that desire to be someone who inflicts pain to someone who heals pain. No longer do I desire, I will be a healer and love all things that grow and are not barren. Killing does what? stops things from growing, and makes things barren. She's saying, I'm going to do the opposite. Okay? This is important because Faramir is going to say something in a few moments. And he laughs. He says, when she says, I don't want to be a queen. He says, good, because I'm not a king. What's he implying she means? He makes it clear in the next sentence. Yet I will wed with the White Lady of Rowan. I don't want to be a queen. That's her way of saying, I'll marry you. Okay? I will wed with the White Lady of Rowan, if it be her will. Making sure, consent, all that. And if she will, then let us cross the river, and in happier days let us dwell in fair Ithilien, and there make a garden. So, they're not going to live in Gondor. Why? Because Aragorn's going to live there with his future wife.
That would be awkward.
Yeah, it'd be kind of hard on Eowyn. They're going to live in Ithilien. And so when he says, and there make a garden, what does he mean?
So that she can let things grow.
So she's going to have her nice little garden like Sam wants his little plot, his nice little garden to tend to. That's one meaning of it. That's the literal surface level meaning. I think there's more than that. How else are they going to make of Ithilien a garden? Notice she says, she will love all things that grow and are not barren. Things that don't produce life. I could be stretching here, but I don't think I am. They're going to have children. They're going to make their own garden. She will not be barren. She is saying, I will have children because the snow has melted. The winter has gone. What comes after winter?
Spring.
And what is spring symbolic of? Life. Birth, rebirth, regeneration, generation. Okay? So, Faramir sends for the warden of the houses of healing and says, she's healed. How is she healed? Is it her arm? The arm that was broken when she stabbed the Dark Rider, the Black Rider, the captain of the Nine? She's holding her sword like this because she couldn't lift it because she broke it when he struck her shield with the mace and broke her arm. Is that what's healed now? No, that's been healed. What's been healed? It's the conversion. She's been spiritually, not from death, from Satan to Jesus, but it is a spiritual conversion. She's been healed inside. Now she seeks what? Life, not death. Okay? So, go on again. End of the chapter, we see Aragorn get married to Arwen. We have Elrond put Arwen's hand in Aragorn's hand. What had to happen for that to happen?
Yeah, to defeat.
Two things. Sauron has to be defeated, and Aragorn must become king. Elrond's not going to give his daughter in marriage to some poor slob who's not even a king. Okay? Sauron has to be defeated. Notice the parallel between Aragorn and Arwen and Beren and Luthien. Beren has to get a Silmaril from the crown of Morgoth before Thingol will let her marry Beren, which he does and succeeds. And when she does that, she makes a choice to give up her quote-unquote immortality and to become human. So that when Luthien dies, and I mean finally dies, she leaves Middle Earth. She doesn't go off to the halls of Mandos. She doesn't go off to Valinor. She will never be seen by her father again. Okay? Luthien does the same. She gives Frodo what? Her ticket. Her literal ticket to paradise, Cue the Foreigner song. I think it's Foreigner. Frodo will now get to go off to Valinor in her stead. Okay? Aragorn, as I mentioned, is like 87 years old. He lives to be 100 or 200 something, and then he dies. Arwen lives a whole lot longer. Her immortality, in one sense, has to wear out. She lives several hundred years longer. Okay? But when she dies, we're told, she will never see Elrond again. Ever. In Tolkien's private papers, the papers that don't get published, they have been since. And I think I mentioned this before. When Iluvatar remakes the world at the end of time, the elves aren't inhabitants in it. We are. Death is the gift given by Eru to humans. Resurrect, it's part of this Catholic theology. They are born and reborn, etc. The dwarves is not clear, but the elves leave and they never come back, right? So, many partings. The hobbits make their way back north, along with several others. That's fine. Who's going to make this trip to the north? Well, Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin. Legolas and Gimli, because they got to go back to their lands. Gandalf, for part of it at least. Aragorn and Arwen are coming on part of it. Elrond's there. Galadriel and Celeborn are there. Right? So they're all taking this trip to the north. Aragorn's going because he's going to, I must have erased it. Aragorn's going to make what in British history is called a progress, where a newly crowned king takes a journey through England, wants to make himself seen and known among the people so they can see the king, and so that he can dispense justice and mercy, has little courts so that people can bring, their problem against this person, and the king will decide. Sometimes the king is merciful, sometimes not and such. So he's got to go up to Rohan, because Rohan is like a commonwealth of part of Gondor, right? And other places. So they start this journey. They leave Arwen and Aragorn. Galadriel and Celeborn go off on their own parts. But before they do, they go to Isengard. They meet Treebeard. Treebeard lets Saruman go. Why?
He doesn't want anyone to be stuck in one place like he was.
He doesn't want to see, he cannot stand to see living things caged. And he says, and besides, he doesn't have any powers. And Gandalf's like, Treebeard, you should have known. His voice. He still has the powers. His voice doesn't have the power to perform spells. When Gandalf, in the chapter of The Voice of Saruman, cast him out of the order, he lost those powers. Okay? Broke his staff, all that stuff. But he can still be persuasive. So, he says he snookered you, essentially. Right? They keep going on, and page 983. Aragorn and Arwen are gone now. Galadriel and Celeborn are still with them. They find Saruman. And Gandalf asks him, where are you going? Saruman responds with a snide answer. You still want to order me about? Aren't you content with my ruin? Gandalf says no and no. But if you had stayed, you would have met the king, and the king would have shown you wisdom and mercy. Aragorn would have. All the more reason to have left. I don't want his wisdom, I don't want his mercy. Okay? And he says, I am seeking a way out of his realm. I want to get out of Aragorn's realm as quickly as I can. Gandalf's response is kind of interesting. Then once more you are going the wrong way, and I see no hope in your journey. So if he's going the wrong way, what is implied he should do?
Go the right way.
How do you do that?
Turn around.
Turn around. there is a one word, two-syllable word that means literally turn around. But you know what it is? Repent. That word literally means you're going this way. Repent means, oops, wrong way. Gandalf is telling Saruman to repent, turn around. But then he adds that second part. You're going the wrong way. And I see no hope in your journey. Now, is he saying, I don't see any hope in your journey if you keep going that way? Might be. He might also be saying, you can't get out of the king's territory or the king's realm. Why not? At the very end, not quite the very end, just before the scouring of the Shire, when Gandalf tells the four hobbits he's not going to the Shire with them, he tells them, my task is done. Remember, he was sent back for a brief time until his task was accomplished. His task was to overthrow Sauron. Okay? It's why one of the reasons, by the way, why he comes back is Gandalf the White. He has to be able to have the power and the strength to oppose Sauron. He tells them the king now has the duty of protecting Middle-earth. That's not just Gondor. In other words, Aragorn now is what Gandalf was before. What was Gandalf before? He tells this to Denethor. Know you not that I too am a steward? What does a steward do? What is the purpose of a steward? What is Faramir's task if Aragorn dies?
To rule in his stead until the king comes back.
To rule in his stead. That is, you're a placeholder. You're ruling in place of somebody else. Medieval theories of kingship, and this is what informs Tolkien's idea of king here, and it's still today. When Charles was crowned king, if any of you watch that, what two things is he given? He's given a royal scepter and an orb. The orb has on it, if I remember correctly, an image of the cross. Why? Because the king rules here temporally in place of God. Aragorn is kind of the stand-in for Uru Iluvatar. Okay? So, that's why I think Gandalf says, I don't see much hope for you on this journey. That is, you're not going to get out of his realm until you die, probably. So, Gandalf offers Saruman what? An opportunity to turn, to change. He doesn't. He says, I wish I had some pipeweed. Frodo says, if I had some, I would give you mine. Merry gives him all of his. Okay? Those are acts of what? Mercy. So, they keep on their way. Chapter 7, Homeward Bound. They get to the prancing pony. Now it's who? Who's left of the group?
Just the hobbits.
Which? Because Bilbo's been with them so far. Bilbo goes off with Galadriel and Celeborn. They're making their way to Rivendell. Okay? Merry, Pippin, Frodo, and Sam, and Gandalf. Gandalf wants to talk to Barlaam Butterbur. Wants to bring him the news. What's the news? There's a new king. He's going to be coming. Barlaam can't believe that it's Strider, etc. Barlaam also passes news on to them. What's the news that he brings? Shire's not quite the same as it was when you left. There are bad things happening. And we're told at the end of that chapter, Pippin says, whatever it is, Lotho will be at the bottom of it. You can be sure of that. Lotho, Sackville Baggins. Okay? Gandalf. He'll be involved. You've forgotten Saruman. He had an interest in the Shire before Mordor did. Where did they get the pipeweed from that they got from? Where was the pipeweed from that Saruman had? The Shire. Okay. Mary, well, we've got you with us. So things will soon be cleared up. You're Gandalf the White. You'll take care of Saruman. And that's when Gandalf says, I am with you at present, but soon I shall not be. I'm not coming to the Shire. And then he says to me one of the strangest, most enigmatic, but also most significant lines in the entire frickin' novel. You must settle its affairs yourselves. That is what you have been trained for. What does the second of that, half of that mean? That is what you have been trained for. Everything that has occurred to them since they left September 22nd of the last year occurred for what reason? Gandalf is suggesting. To prepare them to clean up the Shire. It's to train them to be what? What is Pippin now in Gondor? He's a knight. What is Merry now in Rowan? He's a knight. They've been trained to take care of their problems. Okay? It's almost like, I'm not saying this is literally the case, it's almost like Tolkien is suggesting everything that has occurred to them has all occurred because there's this great, grand, overarching plan in place that things down here are making what is in that plan occur. Okay? And this is part of that plan. They had to go through all this because no matter what Frodo had decided back in the shadow of the past, this is what would have happened. Okay? It's not my task to set things to rights, nor to help folk to do so. You're grown up. And he means that both figuratively and literally. He said, you're grown very high indeed. Merry and Pippin are 4 feet tall because they drank Treebeard's draft. But he means they have become high, noble, honorable. They are now, how does he put it in the fairy story essay? They are now full of a dignity that they didn't have before. Okay? Which we saw, here's an example, with both Merry and Pippin Wynn. I refer to their knighthood. Why does Pippin offer his sword to Denethor? Because his son is dead. And this is Pippin saying, I can't replace Boromir, but I can try. It gives him his sword, which is a replacement for Denethor, for Boromir's sword. What about Merry? Merry says, you shall be like a father to me. And he swears allegiance and loyalty to Theoden, which is why it is only fitting and right that Merry is at Theoden's death on the battlefield. And he gets a strike against the thing that killed him. Okay? So they go back home. And we're going to skip all the battles. And we get to the very end of the chapter, the Scouring of the Shire. About the last 3 pages. And let me, before we discuss these, remember what Tolkien says in the foreword to the 2nd edition. He says, a lot of people thought this chapter was written after the end of World War II. Why? Britain, England, went through great suffering during World War II. From the beginning of the war in 1940 to the very end, mid-1945, and then it went through troubles afterwards. I don't mean troubles, there were wars and fights and things on the island. I mean, they went through great scrimping and saving. I mean, they had almost nothing because everything had been turned into the war process. Okay, so they didn't have great clothes, they didn't have great cars, they didn't have great homes. Everything was really bad. That's what Tolkien is saying. People suggested that led to this. He says, nope. This chapter was thought of from the outset. That is, when he began writing the sequel to The Hobbit, and he had this grand idea of the War of the Ring. That's how the book was originally titled. The Lord of the Rings was the War of the Ring originally. He had this idea that they would come back home, and it is not home. It is not the same they thought it would be. When Frodo leaves the Shire, what does he tell Gandalf? What does he want to do? He wants to preserve the Shire. It's not preserved. Okay? So, they get to Frodo's home, and there's Saruman. And Frodo says, Sharky! So you've heard the name. He says, a sign of affection. But evidently you did not expect to see me here. Frodo, I did not, but I might have guessed. A little mischief in a mean way. Gandalf warned me you were still capable of it, quite capable, more than a little. All right? So he talks a little bit more. And Saruman implies to the hobbits, he plants an idea, tries to plant an idea in their minds, that, yeah, Gandalf leaves you here alone. Why? You're no longer useful to him. He solved his great problem, Sauron. Doesn't really care what happens to you. You are, as he puts it, mere tools in his hands. And he finishes the little speech with, still, I've already done much that you will find it hard to mend or undo in your lives, and it will be pleasant to think of that and set it against my injuries. So that the stuff that he has done, that they will find it hard to undo in their lives, he's saying that is what for him against them. It's his revenge. Okay? And what he's talking about is this. A feud has been created between the hobbits and Saruman. He feels that they injured him. When? Destroying the ring, any of a number of things. Okay? So he does what? He gets vengeance. He gets revenge back on them. How do feuds end? Real feuds. One side has to obliterate the other. Because in the notion of feud, which is ultimately a Germanic notion, but other nations have forms of it too. The only way you get peace is when you totally annihilate the other side. Because as long as there's one living, what is that one living still going to have in his or her mind? I've got to pay them back for what they've done to my family, to my tribe, to my people, to my nation. Okay? This is his way of paying them back for what they've done to him, what he perceives they've done to him. What have the hobbits literally done to Saruman? Nothing. They've shown him kindness. They gave him pipeweed. You know, which, of course, Mary does say, by the way, that they got from Isengard when Isengard was destroyed. So Frodo says, if that's what you find pleasure in, I pity you. Because rephrase what Saruman says he takes pleasure in. What kind of stuff has he done to the Shire? He's caused war. He's caused bloodshed. He's caused pain and agony. What kind of person takes pleasure in another person's pain or agony? What word do we use to describe that kind of individual? A sadist. If you take pleasure in your own pain, you're a masochist. If you inflict pain on yourself and take pleasure in that, then you're a sadomasochist. Frodo is saying, man, you get your jollies by hurting other people? I pity you. Go. Never return. The hobbits come out. Don't let him go. Kill him. Why? Hobbits have died. They want what? They want their revenge. To use Shakespeare, they want their pound of flesh from the Merchant of Venice. Saruman, you can't kill me. You think I lost all my powers? Blah, blah, blah. Frodo, don't worry about it. He can't do anything. But I will not have him slain. It is useless to meet revenge with revenge. Why? Look at the remainder of the sentence. It will heal nothing. Frodo's become what? Like Eowyn, a healer. What was Frodo's attitude in the chapter The Shadow of the Past? Gollum, he deserves death. He is only an enemy and deserves death. Now, in other words, Frodo wants to act like a warrior and have him killed, like Eowyn's mindset before. Now, he's trying to bring healing. He's trying to bring consolation. Go, Saruman. Saruman calls out Wormtongue. Wormtongue goes. Saruman follows him. He gets close to Frodo, pulls out a knife, and tries to stab Frodo. Hits the mithril coat. If Frodo hadn't been wearing it, he'd be bleeding out. Okay? Sam pulls out his sword. Frodo says, do not kill him even now. He has not hurt me. He tried. And in any case, I do not wish him to be slain. In this evil mood. What does he mean in this evil mood? What's the evil mood? Mood means mindset. What's Sam thinking? Revenge. You tried to kill my master. What does he say to Gollum? I've got you now. And then pity takes over. He was great once, of a noble kind that we should not dare to raise our hands against. Why shouldn't they? Because they're little hobbits. What was Saruman? He still is this thing, by the way. He's still a Maya, but he's lost all his powers down here. He was a wizard. He's saying, it's not our right to judge him. He is fallen, and his cure is beyond us. Fallen means he's sick, he's ill, he's not what he once was, and we can't cure him. But I would still spare him. Why? In the hope that he may find it. Just like Gandalf says they spared Gollum. Frodo wants what for Saruman? Think of Eowyn. He wants that conversion. He wants him to be healed. And the implication is, if he finds his cure, what will happen to Saruman? Be restored. He'll be what he once was. He'll be like Gandalf is now. Yes, all of those things. And Saruman says, you've grown, halfling. You've grown very much. You're wise and cruel. You have robbed my revenge of sweetness. And now I must go hence in bitterness and debt to your mercy. What is his revenge that he's saying has been robbed? Let me rephrase that. What is the sweetness that he says he's been robbed of in his attempt at revenge?
Even if he kills Frodo pities him, and there's not going to be that, oh, you hate me, and I'm killing you, and you hate me.
You're 75% there. He stopped Sam from doing what? From killing him. That's the sweetness. The sweetness for Saruman would have been if Frodo or Sam had killed him. Why? because then they would be just as bad as he is. That's the sweetness. Because what is he left with? I am in debt to your mercy. Now he has to go on living. Gnawing away, like Gandalf says Sauron will, gnawing away at his plots, at his conspiracies, at what could have been. And for him, that's horrible. He's alive because of the mercy and pity of Frodo. But he doesn't live because Wormtongue kills him. Frodo offers Wormtongue the same mercy. Wormtongue kills him, runs off, 3 hobbits kill Wormtongue, etc. Chapter 9, Grey Havens. So, a little over a year goes by. Frodo asks Sam if he could take a little trip on Bilbo's birthday and go with him. Sam agrees. He's got a daughter by this time, 6 months old. And as they make their way, they run into a group of people. Celeborn, Galadriel, Gildor, Elrond, Bilbo. And he's like, where are you going? And Frodo tells Sam, to the Grey Havens. And I can't come? No, Sam, page 1029. Not yet, anyway, not further than the Havens. Though you two were a ring bearer, if only for a little while. Your time may come. Frodo's throwing out, there's a possibility, Sam. You may get to go off to the Grey Havens too and go across to Valinor and live with the gods. Frodo gets to go because he's taken Arwen's place. Okay? Sam, but I thought you were going to live what? Happily ever after. Frodo, I tried to save the Shire. It has been saved, but not for me. It must often be so, Sam. When things are in danger, someone has to give them up, lose them, so that others may keep them. What is Frodo saying? He is for Middle-earth, or was for Middle-earth. He's the sacrifice. It's been saved, but not for me. Now go back to Sam, Cirith Ungol, interpreting stories. What kind of story is this? For Sam, it's a different kind of story than it is for Frodo. It's both those kinds of stories Sam talked about. The kind that's a good one for you if you're inside and you get the happily ever after. The kind that's a bad one if you're inside and you don't get the happily ever after. Merry and Pippin show up. Why?
So that Sam won't have to go back alone.
Because Gandalf alerted them so Sam doesn't have to ride home alone in tears. Okay? We get to the very end. We're not going to start Harry Potter. We'll go a few minutes early. We get to the very end. Merry and Pippin break off and go off to Buckland. Sam rides the last way on his own. He arrives at Bag Inn. The sun is setting, so it's getting dark. There's yellow light streaming from the windows. And Rosie Cotton is standing there at the door. Dinner is ready. Somehow she's been alerted. Sam's returning. She's standing at the door and she does what? She draws him in. She pulls him into what? Domestic happiness. Sam gets what he has always wanted in life. A wife, a baby, a home. And he says, well, I'm back. Why? I'm back implies what? I've returned to where I was at the beginning. He gets Tolkien's consolation of the happy ending. But Frodo does also in a sense. Why? Because Frodo doesn't have to suffer the quote-unquote slings and arrows of outrageous fortune that Hamlet talks about here. Is Sam going to have hard days ahead? Yeah, he'll have some. But they get balanced out with the love of family. Frodo goes off to the other world. Okay? All right, we'll stop there. Somebody told me in my first class, it was not supposed to be visible to you. The Return of the King quiz is available. It doesn't show up in your calendar, but it shows up under the quiz tab. I'll make it so it shows up and is available. If it's not already showing that it's due like tonight or something, I'll make it due in a couple of days. I'm going to post the exam over the Lord of the Rings. I'll post it today. It'll be due a week from today. So you got plenty of time. You have like an hour and a half to complete it. Okay? We will do all of this on Tuesday. This is not like reading this. Open this and look at a page and open Lord of the Rings, and there's about 3 times as many words on a page in the Lord of the Rings. All right. Have a good weekend.